And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Battles of Westeros is kind of like the perfect storm, or was supposed to be, of gaming. If you look at the game, it says it's a Battlelore game. Battlelore was a game originally published by Days of Wonder, sold to Fantasy Flight, and it's a game, a very fun and popular fantasy battle warfare game designed by Richard Borg. This one then is based on the Fire and Ice, or the Game of Thrones universe, very popular fantasy book series, and so all this combined together should have produced a game that was a lot of fun. Now, when I opened the game and looked through it, and the first thing I noticed was that it had 8-sided dice, and I saw the familiar hexagons from the Battlelore game, but this game is not compatible with with the previous Battlelore set. In fact, I'm really not sure why they put Battlelore in the box, other than that some of the mechanics are similar, but the game plays very differently. Now, I do feel that it captures the theme of the books, of the battles in the books, and I feel like there's some very good strategy here. My only disappointment was, like I said, there's really nothing Battlelore in it, and the components of the game have some pretty, well, they just weren't put together as well as they should have been. Other than that, it has some very interesting ideas. What was so great about one of the original games of this type of series, Memoir 44, was how you could pull out the pieces and set everything up quickly. That is really not the case anymore. Now, you have these green bases with this game, and I don't know why the units just didn't come with a base attached, other than the fact that I guess they wanted the green base so that it looked better on the board. And so you have to take the units and then place them into the base. So if I have the horse here, and I'm putting them into the base, it should fit in like this. And then I have the horse. The problem is, when I'm moving these pieces around, they come out of the bases real easily. Now the box has a little piece of paper that comes with it that basically says, hey, you should glue them. Because there might be some problems. Well, there's no might about it. It's really annoying. You have to glue them. And look how many there are. I mean, who wants to glue every single one of these into bases? I just found that a bit annoying. And then, once you do have them in bases, you need to put a little marker on one of them, and then put a banner on this, and the game comes with plenty of different banners and things. But so far, so good. I mean, yes, this is annoying, but if you're someone who's looking for a good game, you're going to get beyond this. You're going to paint them, or maybe not, but you're going to at least glue them into the bases, and then you're going to go through the scenario book and find a game that you're going to play. Now, this is really too big of a game for me to explain everything in it and explain how the whole game works. But I will say that the scenario book is really convenient at setting up scenarios for the game. And there's some really nice scenarios, and I really like how the terrain is used. And the terrain is used with very similar pieces to those that you've seen from games before. But you set up a scenario, and you set up your units after gluing them all on their bases, and then you get ready to play. Now, this game has a deck of cards that players will be drawing from, and they'll be playing these cards to move different units on the board, like before. However, there's some differences here. In each scenario, there are some leaders that you'll be using. Each side will have a certain amount of leaders. These leaders are powerful, and maybe even have some special abilities, but these leaders come with specific cards. This one here at the bottom says Kevin Lannister 4 or 5. There are 5 Kevin Lannister cards that go in your deck. So leaders will bring their own unique abilities to the game. The game revolves around 8-sided dice, which are used both in combat and for issuing orders. Now, if you've noticed, in the regular version there's 6-sided dice. The reason there's 8-sided here is because when you're attacking a unit, you will hit them when you roll the color of the banner of that unit. Remember, I showed you earlier this gentleman here, he has a blue banner. So to hit him you need to roll a blue banner, and there's a blue banner on 2 sides, or the wild, which might always hit him. Then there's the green banners are on 3 sides, and then the red banner is only on 1 side. So obviously a red unit is much harder to hit, while green units are much lighter to hit. These dice are also used at the beginning of a round. A player will roll dice, and they will take tokens equal to what they roll, and those are units that they can order, besides what's on their card. And so they have the opportunity to order different units to move around the board, and you can see that the green units, while they might get hit more often, are going to be moved around much more often, showing their increased mobility. It's a pretty interesting strategy, and while I think it's a little bit more complex than games in the series before that, people who like this sort of thing are going to be really happy with it. And, you know, it is really fun to roll 8-sided dice. Now, I mentioned leaders in the game, and here's a picture of one of the leaders, Jaime Lannister. And I must mention, by the way, they picked the two factions I think people would be interested in seeing going at each other, and there are already several expansions in the work. But these leaders have special abilities that they can use during the game. When you play these cards, see, when you play these order units, you can move different units around the board. When you play a card, you have to play a certain amount of leadership tokens, and you put that on the character or the leader who's using it. And then the only units that are able to be moved are units that are within a certain number of hexes from that leader. So, and the leader pieces, by the way, come in gray. If I have this leader on the board here, and he's probably going to be with his own group of men, anybody within 2 hexes of him can be ordered with one of those cards. And this shows the power of those leaders. It also shows the danger of losing one of those leaders, and it keeps your units together. It's another riff on the Commands and Colors universe, where you're trying to keep units together in close formation. I thought this was a very well done part of the game. One last feature I want to mention of the game is this morale track that you have, and it shows basically where morale is at any given point in time. And different things will cause the morale to go up and down, and if your morale ever gets to a certain point, your whole army could break and you lose the game. And so having this in play, and a lot of the scenarios deal specifically with morale, again, brings another level of strategy to the game. Now, I really thought that by knowing Battle Lore, Memoir 44, Commands and Colors, Battle Cry, the previous games, that I would really just be able to glance through this and get started. And that is not the case. I had to read through the rule book, set up the whole scenario and set it out, because there was a lot of changes. There's a lot of things different. That is not a knock against this game. The only knock would be, I feel that it's very almost deceptive to have the name Battle Lore in the title when it has almost nothing to do with this, other than that you're rolling dice and pulling units off, and there's some orders, but there's no 3 different corridors of battle. You can move any unit in the board as long as you have the token and or they're close to a leader. But this game does have a lot of strategy to it. There's a lot involved, you know, keeping units together near leaders, utilizing leaders when you best can, moving pieces around, knowing about those light units, how fragile they are, and yet how quick they can move on the board. So it's more in depth than the other games in the series. I don't know that it's my style, or it's barely my style, because maybe it's a little bit too in depth. One of the things I loved about Commands and Colors was being able to throw it out and just play a game of it, you know, look at the different things. Here there's a lot more going on, especially once the leaders come into play. But I know there's also a lot of people who are looking for that, and there's a lot of people who want to recreate the battles that came in the Song of Fire and Ice series. And so I think for that it works. A lot of that series is based on intrigue and deception and character development, and that's not in this game at all. It's purely battles. But it's there. It's a well-designed system. How long will it last? They have several expansions planned. We'll have to see. Is it the best in the series? No. Memoir 44 is still the best. But this is a good alternative.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.